Morning, everybody. Vice-Chancellor Derek, I'm sorry to hear about your troubles. Actually, I read your annual report. It looked okay. Things have obviously gone downhill quite rapidly since then. Yes, I thought there might be a secret story there. It is fabulous to be back at AUT, of course, New Zealand's youngest university, and I must say, every time I come here, reminded also one of New Zealand's most vibrant universities as well. Of course, alongside, he quickly said, all the other ones, roughly equal. Thank you very much again for the invitation, Diane, Nikki, and Roger and the team. Welcome, and thank you very much for the welcome here this morning as well. It is a pleasure to be at this symposium again. Determined to make the effort to be here this time because I remain convinced that what you people do is one of the most crucial aspects of our education system, which of course is unlocking the opportunities for literacy and numeracy for a very significant number of adult learners in this country. The reality is Kiwis without literacy and numeracy skills miss out on a whole world of life opportunities and of course in many cases the self-esteem and independence that comes from being literate and numerate. And I think the risks for those people are only going to grow over time as we see more and more competition from emerging countries around the world in terms of improving education standards in those countries with very large populations, and that creates further risks for those that get left behind from the education system around the world, frankly, and of course including in New Zealand. We have many challenges in terms of our levels of literacy and numeracy amongst adults, and especially those in the workforce. However, I have to say I'm heartened by the progress that we have made to date, particularly in the embedded and focused literacy and numeracy programs. Of course, the survey in 2006, which now is of course 6 years old, pointed out that more than 1 million New Zealanders had literacy and numeracy skills below those needed to participate fully in today's modern high-skilled society. Māori adults had lower literacy and numeracy skills than the general population, and Pacifica adults were also represented, and those differences are still very significant today. The government is working alongside educators to address this issue, and I'm pleased to say that together we are making some progress. The government has made literacy and numeracy one of our major education priorities, and it will continue to be a key priority in the tertiary education strategy. Since 2008, we have invested more than $120 million in a range of specific literacy and numeracy initiatives. The investment, and more importantly, the hard work of professionals like those of you here today, has ensured that we have made some good progress as we work towards raising our nation's level of adult literacy and numeracy. I'm pleased to see that the total number of learners receiving adult literacy and numeracy opportunities has in fact trebled in just 2 years. In 2010, there was 36,200 learners participating in literacy and numeracy in adults. In 2011, 93,000, and in 2012, there is an estimated 122,736. I love the 36 at the end there, obviously. Somebody at T's has been very busy. From 2010 through to 2012, 250,000 adult learners will have received support in developing their literacy and numeracy skills through a range of provision. And obviously coupled with that, it is great to see the progress that has been made in embedding literacy and numeracy into level 1 to 3 qualifications. I think that's very, very important because the point is well made that many people don't necessarily want to just, in their own mind, improve their literacy and numeracy. They want skills, but it is that catalyst that exposes them to the opportunities to improve their literacy and numeracy skills. More broadly, course and qualification completions across level 1 to 3 rose 6% and 7% over the last 2 years respectively. Most providers now have well over 85% of their level 1 to 3 provision, including embedded literacy and numeracy. That puts us in a reasonable position for the coming years. We're very focused on ensuring that Level 1 and 2 provision becomes more tightly focused on learners who need it, such as people with no previous qualifications, and literacy and numeracy is essential at foundation levels. I'll talk more about that shortly. Also, I'd like to make a comment about ACE as well, which plays an important part in foundation level learning. As you will no doubt know, in the last term we refocused our ACE support towards core skills like literacy and language and life skills. In the budget that has just happened, Government has announced an extra $2.2 million over the next 4 years to further encourage that Foundation Skills ACE program. And I do realise and appreciate that ACE is the first step into a classroom for a lot of people and provides an important bridge into formal education. I'm pleased with the way the ACE Sector Strategic Alliance is responding to the challenges. And I met with them earlier this week, and they've got some exciting work going on in terms of outcomes there. Of course, there's lots more to do, and we are increasing participation, but we have a long way to go on this journey, and getting on top of the literacy and numeracy challenge will take continued effort right across all parts of the sector. Yes. Excellent. In the caucus, we have a rule that somebody has to make a donation to the fund if the phone goes off, which could be good for lunch. We could get a bit of a ring round for lunch. One example, of course, is the continuing work of the National Centre of Adult Literacy and Numeracy in providing a main focal point of professional development for the sector. The face-to-face engagement, the symposia and the events are key strengths of the centre. They are important vehicles for promoting and implementing the learning progressions, the assessment tool, and the principles behind good practice in literacy and numeracy teaching, as well as facilitating informed academic and professional dialogue. The Centre's activities are certainly assisting with positive outcomes for learners, educators, managers and providers, and I think the response from the sector has been positive, and I'm very pleased with the progress that the Centre is encouraging. Another area of ongoing work is the continued rollout of the Literacy and Numeracy for Adults assessment tool. It has become a key diagnostic tool of literacy and numeracy competency for adults in this country. There was no nationally recognised diagnostic assessment before the launch of this, and I think that confirms the uptake confirms it's a significant new resource for the sector. I'm looking forward to seeing the first release of general data from the assessment tool, which I understand is towards the end of this year. The government has big ambitions for adult learning. Adult learning is crucial to lift the skills of our workforce, and of course, most people who will be in the workforce over the next 30 years are already in the workforce today. It's crucially important for individuals and their families. All the research says that once you get a level 4 or higher qualification, then the chances of a greater income relative to somebody who hasn't achieved that is much higher, and also it's more likely that you'll have sustained longer periods of employment. We have placed particular emphasis on 25 to 34-year-olds, as they will naturally benefit the most for the longest period from an increase in their skill levels. On Monday, the Prime Minister announced the target to have 55% of 25 to 34-year-olds holding a level 4 qualification or greater in the next 5 years. And that's actually pretty challenging because of the way the demographic bulge is working at the moment. We are getting quite significant increases, but we'll need another 11,000 people to qualify with level 4 or higher above what the trend line is currently if we're to achieve that target in the next 5 years, and it's only 5 years, so there's quite a lot of work to do. A big way in which we will achieve that will be the refocusing of level 1 and 2 provision. Firstly, to lift the success of people undertaking level 2 qualifications, and I think that's very important, and then to make sure that we are progressing people on to higher level qualifications. There are a number of ways, of course, we're targeting it. One is the Youth Guarantee, which will pick up some younger people that are currently at risk of falling out of the system during those middle teenage years and provide opportunities for them when they're at risk of becoming disengaged, and that program is working well. The second is changes in industry training, which is putting a much greater focus on outcomes and results in industry-led training. And the third is by performance-linked funding for institutions, which places a greater emphasis on providers to support students to pass their courses and qualifications. But I think one of the key areas where we can make a difference is in foundation or second chance education for foundation learners. Government funding of foundation level education has had a very interesting history, as many of you will be aware. During the early 2000s, there was a 90% increase in level 1 and 2 courses in New Zealand. Most of it was reasonably average quality, high volume qualifications at levels 1 and 2. A lot of them were not suitable for students with genuine foundation learning needs. By closing some funding loopholes and removing the uncapped funding environment, there has been a steady decline in the volume of that sort of provision over the last few years. And in recent years, the TEC removed funding for short courses and regulatory compliance courses in order to ensure the funding is actually targeted to qualifications that have the greatest return for learners. From going through that exercise of tidying things up, we are now shifting towards a more active investment approach to make sure funding is allocated to high-quality providers that are able to show they can get the results that we're looking for, which is a real lift in the education and employment prospects of those learners that have not succeeded previously. Today, there are some great foundation courses in our institutions, but it is still true that only about half of the people enrolled in level 1 and 2 at tertiary level don't already have a level 1 or 2 qualification. So we want to focus foundation learning on more for being foundation learners and encourage those that already have a level 1 or 2 qualification as much as possible to progress and study at higher levels where they'll get the highest degree of return. So we're going back to a focus on what foundation level learning is for and the kind of opportunities we want foundation learners to have. These are, of course, to provide people who do not already have essential foundation skills with a low-cost way to gain those skills, to provide a pathway to higher level study and skilled employment, to build their language, literacy and numeracy skills, to enable beginning students to learn English or te reo Māori, and to minimise the costs to individuals, including of student loan borrowing, for acquiring what are in fact essential foundation skills which are unlikely to lead to an increased income opportunity on their own, but will give to a pathway that will lead to that over time. So to get foundation level education focused on those that most need them, we're going to make a few changes. For a start, we've already signalled that we're going to have a dedicated $115 million budget in 2013 that is ring-fenced to foundation level education. We're going to make it much more likely that level 1 and 2 provision is focused on those that do not already have a level 2 qualification. Providers will be asked to manage a transitional regime to shift enrolments that they currently have with level 2 qualifications already higher up the scale and seek out learners who have not got level 1 and 2 qualifications for their foundational provision. Keep open entry for levels 1 and 2 te reo and English for speakers of other language qualifications. Only fund full qualifications with embedded literacy and numeracy. We're actually getting there anyway. That's not a million miles from where we are today. There's only a few courses that are less than 40 credits now. Around 1/3 of the foundation level funding will be administered by making it a more open allocation process, and we will be including private providers as part of that as well, because there are some very good private providers at some of the lower levels who don't yet have the opportunity to participate in level 1 and 2 funding. And that will mean by doing it by an EOI process through the TEC, which will look to allocate